Okay, let's talk a little about reality. And like some people really have this kind of problem with trying to know what's the purpose of life. And I find like the purpose really easy to find out is the thing that will represent you somehow to other people. Usually people when they have that kind of representation, they feel themselves as like my representative. So they protect themselves as much as they can. But it's interesting to notice that usually people find out throughout their lives something that they will die for. It doesn't matter if it's like a son or a daughter or something like a project, a piece of art, a business, an idea, like a nationality or something that the person feels that will represent them somehow to like reality itself. So it's interesting to notice that we usually try to be representatives of the values that we admire, we like, we see that will help us achieve our objectives and avoid our problems. So this object that we used we want to represent us has to be our values. That's why like we want our children to be like us in some aspects that we like, and of course different from us if we don't have values that we don't like. Or that's why our projects have to be like the best project ever in order to be like worth our lives. So it's interesting to see how it works, but it doesn't matter. I feel that it's really easy to understand that. I don't feel that like there's any problem in trying to understand how things work in that realm. Of course, the mathematization, like from like first principles and from axiomatic math, from to create those ideas and try to solve like psychological problems through math. It's kind of not so um, it's not so explored. I think it's like I don't know. I don't have like a lot of knowledge about the fields of study from like trying to mathematize psychological ideas like complexes and drives and motivation and that sort of stuff. Of course, economy did some things related with that, and now I'm trying to get my mind around the ideas of like information theory and those equations and ideas match with economy. So like our economy is based on our abilities to communicate. Whoa, wow, that's so new idea. No, it's like it's interesting because it's math based. Like you have all that kind of definitiveness of math, and that's a good thing because like we have this kind of ability to communicate what you think, how you see reality. Do you see what I'm seeing? Do you see the world that I'm in, that we are in? But you have a lot of noise. We have like we don't know exactly how to convey our messages in the most clear possible, like the best possible way. So we have a lot of noise in our communications, and it happens. So uh, the idea with math is that we don't have a lot of noise because if you do the process and you find out by yourself the solutions, the ideas, the world, that you are trying to expose to other people. But of course, when people say, "Oh, but math is so precise and so," man, if you talk math to most like 99% of people in the streets, they won't have a clue what you're talking about. So like you have a lot of noise in math because it's like very difficult language. You have, of course, after you get to know the basics and advanced stuff and intermediate and advanced stuff, you can read it, you can understand it, you can understand like what the people were showing me in the world through these little drawings here on this page. But you have a lot of noise when people doesn't know how to read it. So like it's not so useful and like normal communications, but you should be able to have all the structure of communication in math, and you derive the best emotion human communication from that structure that you can find out. I don't know how far we are of like mathematizing everything, because like all the forms, all the information, all the thought patterns, all the apparent random movements of an axon or in our neurons in our brain, when everything like that is really, really, really understandable by math, and maybe not just by probability, but by yes and no's, and with a precise certainty of that thing will happen, like Laplace demon and so on and so forth, we can have better communication, because we will be able to know where we have to go. And communication is about like pointing to things, pointing to realities, pointing to consequences. That's not like unusual or wow, far from thought. That like that's why this the name of the dude, Epictetus, the Stoics, say that in order to like have a better life, you have to understand like the consequences and the causes of everything. You have to think, oh, if I want to go to the pool with my dudes, I have to know like everything that can happen there that is bad. And when I know everything like that's bad and I want to do, I won't be frustrated because I know reality and I know the possibilities that can happen to me, and it will make me like more efficient in the way that I deal with things, because I won't suffer because I expected to suffer, so I won't, because suffering is just that, in my opinion, is the recalculation of path that we do, and it hurts because it's a drain of energy, and we are energy creatures. Not a, like the hoary, like the fairy tale energy stuff that is not so useful, because people talk about a lot about energy and oh, my chakras and my chi. And of course, if it has like kind of like really grasp of solutions to problems, and if you do that and that and that, that will be the outcome. But it's a thing that you have to think, too much, and change a lot of concepts from the basic concept of like chakra or chi. It's not so useful. It's better to have a concept that you have to think less, aka like waste less energy in order to like solve your situation. That's why some ideas are better than others. But going back to the energy stuff, you have to be able to recalculate your route as fast as you can. That's why Stoics already have our routes, like our like all paths sorted out somehow. So like, oh, if you're imagine what is like the two worst things that can happen if you are like a normal human. Like your relations can break, like with your spouse or your, I don't know, your wife or your husband, or they die, they like betray you somehow, or your children dies. That's like the worst thing that can happen. Oh, okay, now it was alive. What's like moving? It was moving. Like now it's rock. bad. So like, yeah, it happens, but of course, so it happens, but people suffer a lot because there's a lot of imagination going on about a future that we'll have with those human beings. And when you broke that and broke that illusion, we suffer because we have to recalculate every fucking little action in our lives, almost. Going to the corner, eating, everything in our imaginations have some kind of interaction with them in the past, and by imagination, the future. So we have to understand all the little variables that will change with their absence. That's why some people just don't care anyway if people die, because they don't have them in their lives, in their imaginary lives. So yeah, that's what happens. And so Stoics prepare people to just face that, because it's the worst thing that can happen. Like you can get sick. They say that you can get sick. You can like lose your children. You can lose your wife. You can lose stuff. Get ready. You will lose stuff. Get ready. Well, your body will like fade. You're not in control of your body. You're controlling just your like what happens in your mind. That's like the real control that you have about stuff. And that's like, yeah, yes. Because like if you can control like life and death of people, if you know about enough about like telomeres and cells and cell division and biochemistry in a really deep level, you can control more stuff, of course. But people and back then, like even more, like they don't know how to control what the gods want, So control is like the source of comfort. Like we are comfortable in some situation when we feel that we won't die. And dying is not about just about ourselves, about what I call our standard self. That is everything that shares our values and we perceive that shares our values, or we project that shares our values. Like my car, I don't have a car, but cars are things that people really care about. And if they break, like my father's camionette, yesterday breaking, like it's bad, it hurts, but it's a car. It's like a machine. It's like metal and a lot of metal and some kind of circuits. It doesn't have pain. It doesn't have like a spine cord or so robot, like so interesting sensors to feel the world around it. But we feel about that object. We project our values. When we are happy, yes, the thing maybe is happy as well. When I'm sad, it at least protects me from the wind and like take me to the point B that I want to be. So it helps me. It is in my world. It makes my reality more controllable. So it shares my values. My home is like that. So that's my extended self. And of course, maybe we'll be able to measure how we feel about like different parts of our extended self and realize that the problem is ignoring a lot of people and making them outside that so-called extended self. I don't know if some philosophers have or has the same idea, but it's like very basic stuff. I feel that maybe there is like so that's the thing. So I'd like to do this video to just talk a little about those ideas, because I think they are fundamental to understanding reality, at least our reality as human beings trying to strive in this world. And philosophers did a lot of work that I have to study more and to get to know better in order to like make better ideas come out from this mouth that is talking to you now. So yeah, bye.